The wings are brushing me. They're brushing me! Well, maybe Father Lamont shouldn't have drank one too many Red Bulls, but I can see clearly now that Regan's gone. Back to the dark side of Pazuzu's ways. And now Father Lamont must go to Africa to figure out where the demon lays. I'm John Renton with the retro review of Exorcist 2, The Heretic. Burn the heretics, burn the film, make sure this film is never seen again. The follow-up to The Exorcist from 1973, and my oh my, even though I didn't love or even really honestly fully liked the first Exorcist, it had life and energy and was iconic as far as an influential film in horror. Max von Sydow was in it, and also Linda Blair, Ellen Bernstein. In case you're wondering why I just decided to review this all out of the blue, it's not so out of the blue, because The Exorcist Believer is coming out in about 8-9 days, and I decided, hell with it. I'll rewatch the rest of the Exorcist movies, because I did retro review the first Exorcist back in April of last year, I believe. Check that out if you want. But where to goddamn start with this movie? The plot, such as it is kind of goddamn bullshit. Now, director John Boorman, who also did, and by the way, he had directing duties or directing credits, and also Rospo Pollenberg, who also helped write the movie. But in case John Boorman is a name that doesn't quite ring a bell, remember The Tailor of Panama? Remember Excalibur? Not the ancient, sword story, but the 1980-something movie that came out. Remember Deliverance? He directed that. He went from Deliverance to this. Now, again, the first Exorcist. Not exactly one of my favorite movies, but I totally respect the people that liked it. Let's go over some facts and figures before we get to the rest of the cast and the rest of this, because this movie was goddamn dog shit. One of the worst sequels to any horror movie ever. This is on a Mount Rushmore of incompetence and bullshit. Anyway, the first one cost $11 million, which in today's money would be like $76 million. So quite a bit. I mean, Warner Bros. Spent quite a bit on it, and they got a big return. $8.1 million opening, $56 million today. So, okay, pretty good. And if it had just coasted from there and made $40 to $50 million, that would have been great. It made $233 million at the U.S. box office, a smash fucking success, which would be $1.61 billion today. And worldwide, it made about $208 million more. It made $441.3 million, $3.05 billion in today's money. Are you serious? Can you dig it? And then the second one cost $14 million because I figured out the first one was so successful and we couldn't get the same director. We really shouldn't be doing a sequel, but money talks. And I totally get why they did a sequel, even though the movie could have just stood alone and raised questions and everything. And maybe you could have done one years and years later, but they simultaneously rushed this sequel and also took their time because this came out 4 years later. $14 million budget, just about $71 million in today's money. $6.7 million opening. Okay, so not quite as much, but nevertheless, did pretty well. $34 million in today's money. $30 million gross. $30 million. For those of you that aren't math majors, that is $203 million less than the first Exorcist. Now, yes, those numbers could have something to do with re-releases and everything, but that's one thing. That is basically $150 million or $152 million in today's money. So it was successful. It made money. But the production issues with this goddamn thing. I mean, this is before I even get to the cast because there's so much to go. According to IMDb, the director pulled the film twice from theaters to do more editing. And this was the best they goddamn had. Linda Blair went on record saying she had numerous drug and alcohol issues. I believe drug issues. I don't know what specific drug issues, but she would show up late to filming. She was also only 18 when this film came out. So unfortunately, she was one of those child actors that success, she didn't handle it all that well. And also, I imagine there were a lot of other factors. I'm not judging at all. She seemingly is clean now. Has been clean for years. That's great. The shooting was a mess. The balcony scene that they did a little bit later on was actually apparently done on an actual balcony, and her screams of terror were legit. What happened if the director didn't get her? Gee, I wonder. But Richard Burton, who plays Father Lamont, said that he was going through a divorce with Elizabeth Taylor and needed the money. I can't fault him for taking the money. I can fault him for his absolute shit acting in this, even though Richard Burton is not a shit actor. But universally reviled. This was laughed out of theaters in multiple locations. This was laughed out of theaters. Obviously, I wasn't alive in 1977. I'm old. I'm not that old. But the same year that Star Wars came out, and the same year so many, around the same time, so many movies that were, sure, maybe, ones that you might not think might be full-on hits, but it made sense to go with this IP, go with this, way of like trying to recapture the success. I mean, you had Jaws 2 come out a year after this. The thing about Exorcist the Heretic, or Exorcist 2 the Heretic, is trying to have a few different ideas isn't the worst thing in the world. The problem is all the ideas were laughed at horribly. John Borman, who apparently is still alive at 90 years old, really can only hang his hat on the fact that he did Deliverance. Because after that, I mean, Excalibur, I guess, was all right. Taylor of Panama was fine. It was one of those many Pierce Brosnan movies. I think Pierce Brosnan was in that, if I recall correctly. It's been years, gone blank. But William Goodhart did this, wrote this, rather. He did a film called Cloud Dancer. He doesn't have a lot of movies to his credit. Taking a look at this, you can see why. So yes, Regan returns. Well, Regan McNeil, that's played by Linda Blair. Regan smash, Regan smash, Regan sleepy. There is one funny line during this movie. Is there any point in going on? And I imagine that was probably the mindset of many while the film was taking place. Yes, Richard Burton, Louise Fletcher, is here as Dr. Gene Tuscan, under the Tuscan sun, as it were. Father Marin makes some appearances in flashbacks, Max von Sydow. Kitty Wynn, I would have. She plays Sharon Spencer. Linda Blair didn't want to actually have anything to do with putting on the demon makeup, so they used a stunt double, by God you can tell, complete with different voice and everything and all this. They couldn't even get the original voice actor. They couldn't even try to do anything to make the voice sound different. Well, okay, sound a little bit, a little bit different, but at least close enough for rock and roll. Like, this thing was totally different. Like, to the point, it's like they didn't even see the first Exorcist movie and just heard about it through secondhand and then third-hand knowledge. It was amazing. I mean, Paul Henreid was in this. Ned Beatty, Belinda Beatty, not Belinda Carlisle. Would have loved to have seen Belinda Carlisle. Still would. James Earl Jones was in this. James Earl Jones. So yes, the plot, such as it is, there is a facility with all glass rooms, so patients can be observed in this treatment facility, where Regan is still fighting the demon in her, and Richard Burton's Father Lamont, Philip Lamont as it were, is investigating the death of Max von Sydow's Father Marin. That's the bare bones of the plot. The thing is the plot tries to go in a bunch of different directions, and again, the first one, with stuff I really didn't care about. I mean, I don't think that the first one's all that great, but at least it arrived at a conclusion you could buy into, and a definitive conclusion, where evil was like, I'm going to win one way or another. That's pretty much the whole point. But 9% critical rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 39 on Metacritic, which is still too high. 13% audience rating and 3.8 out of 10 on IMDb from the audience. Yeah. So we start off with uncontrollable screaming in a Spanish villa somewhere. That kind of fits because I imagine many were uncontrollably screaming while watching this. And then the girl that apparently is possessed by Satan or possibly just bad menstrual cramps, I don't know, sets herself on fire, and baby, we go higher into the sun. And that looks so goddamn fake, her burning herself. I know that it was 77, and you worked with the technology you could, but Jesus fucking Christ, the first one cost $3 million less. And this came out 4 years later, and this looked like they spent a third of the goddamn budget. Jesus. Regan is seen tap dancing for some reason, dressed like a camp counselor going to Camp Crystal Lake before Camp Crystal Lake was thought of. And then you have the all-glass facility where there's the camera work is absolute shit. There are points where there are these shots down these long hallways, and it's not for atmosphere. It's like the cameraman was afraid to get close to the actors. Like he didn't have permits to shoot that close to them. Seriously, plan your shots better. Movie that came out almost 50 years ago. And yeah, we're going to clear Father Merrin's name, the Cardinal says. The Cardinal, who is played by somebody whose name escapes me right now, and I don't really fucking care. Possibly Paul. I do not care, honestly, because none of, the actors in this movie made me want to revisit the details beyond what I said ever again. And then they have the hypnosis machine. Or the hypnotic machine, or it's like the movie Hypnotic, except this was more coherent. But anyway, the whole point is they put little strap things on their heads, little things like this, and then they psychically link with ESP before ESPN was really taking off, and we're gonna do this and strobe lights. The producer didn't even want to chime in. He was afraid of the strobe lights, but hey Bo. That's basically what it was. It was just strobe light stuff, and it was a way to get into the deepest, darkest depths of Regan's mind, and then Regan also had to bring the people down to her level. Like Dr. Tuscan, and then she had some heart issue because there was the demon that was the stunt double, by the way, because Linda Blair didn't want to put the makeup on, grabbing the heart like, ha, I'm going to do this, I'm grabbing her titty, ha, 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 ha. Who thought these were good ideas is what I wrote down. This would not end. I wrote that down at least 5 times during this. I have seen this movie, but it's been years. So I went in basically forgetting that a lot of this shit happened until I saw it play out. But now Father Lamont sees the demon, so he decides, I need to go rescue Regan, but I need to go over here. It's Rescue Regan. Chip and Dale Rescue Regan. That was a missed opportunity for the intro. So then he's like, well, we've got to put the fire out at one point, because there was this fire that he saw in the basement of this hospital or hotel room or hotel lobby. Nevertheless, there were some dolls that were on fire, some boxes that were on fire, and eventually Dr. Tuscan realizes, hey, wait a second, shit, I got a fire extinguisher. Or maybe it's a distinguisher. Yep, that's a fire. So then Regan nearly has an accident with the on the balcony. Regan, come Regan, we're going flying far away. Yes. There were more locusts on the village. Locusts devouring the crops of the village. That's the most enthusiasm you're going to get with the song reference. And then there's the stairs scene, where the stairs in the first one, where there was a great shots, because William Friedkin, even recently past William Friedkin, even though he made Bug, and I will never forgive him for that, understood how to make The Exorcist. And then we get more bullshit. We get more, blinky, stroby things, or and then they're at the old house, where all the stuff took place in Washington, D.C., that is. So then we go flashbacks to Africa, like in the Exorcist, the beginning. Remember that? Remember that movie that came out in 2004? Yeah, I'll be retro-reviewing that one, too, because I have nothing better to do with my life. I am Pazuzu. Cue Professor Farnsworth. Pazuzu! Professor, this ship can go half the speed of light. Why are we going 35 miles an hour? Because we're in a hurry, damn it! And then Call Me By My Dream Name. That was a terrible version of Call Me By Your Name, which I probably should rewatch at some point, even though it's incredibly sad. So, then there's more flashbacks of Pazuzu besieging this African village where they're on this mountain top thing and people are falling in the slowest deaths ever. We see James Earl Jones as Kokumo, and we're going to take it fast and take it slow. And then we have James Earl Jones as the man they call Kokumo. Yeah, this was shit, in case you didn't gather. But while this is going on, Regan is back in wherever the hell she is. They totally abandoned the the machine and stuff like that. Then she's talking to Father Lamont, says, do priests believe in ESPN? Oh, I'm sorry, it's ESP. The psychic link and all that. Lamont says, I must go to Africa to rescue you. So he does. Then he finds the body in a cliff. Then he lets it slip to Pazuzu. He channeled Pazuzu to find this stuff, and then the people run away from him. Smart. I don't blame them. And then Regan is also having a psychic breakdown because she's linked with Lamont, because why not? And she passes out during her tap dancing cabaret type thing, whatever the hell's going on. Please don't drug me. I need to sleep, or I need to stream or do something. I need to do something other than be in this. Then there's a guy named Edwards. Ned Beatty shows up. What was left of him at this point? And he flies around. There's locusts all around. The movie I saw called The Swarm. I think it was called The Swarm. It was on Netflix. It was French or something, or Spanish. That didn't have as many locusts in this. And this was about a goddamn locust farm. And this movie had more locusts in it. Yes, locusts, plagues, I get it. The search for Kokumo continues. And then, you're going to call me by my name. Yes, Pazuzu. And then he ends up having to walk across some spikes to find James Earl Jones, but then it's a dream, and James Earl Jones is a doctor who is helping locusts and has raised a female one called the Good Locust, I guess? Kinda? And then Lamont wants to help Regan, but then he ends up getting possessed during the usage of the machine, because we're back to this fucking dream. Oh, John Borman, I fucking hate you. I hate everything about you, and I don't even know you. And then Regan decides to follow him while he's possessed, walking through a subway. Then they get on a bus, and then they get on a plane. And then, or no, they're on a bus. And then Gene and Sharon are on a plane. Not Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons in this would have been fucking hilarious. Egotistical nature of the movie would have gone into the goddamn stratosphere to the point that we would have burst through the Earth's atmosphere, but nevertheless, we go back to the old house. Then locusts pop out of Regan's old room. And then there's the demon Regan. And then it looks like Lamont is trying to actually get with her. Gross. She was 18 when the movie came out. I can only imagine what she was when the shooting came out. Regardless, gross, stop that. But demonic possession. Regan's freaking out. Sharon ends up getting totally burned. Well, she's not doing all that well, because there's this car wreck. This cab driver forgets to kick out the windshield, or maybe just hit stop and then let the people out, but whatever, because it's like a baseball landed in the whole goddamn... All this stuff is happening really goddamn quickly. And the wings are brushing me. He's hitting her against a cabinet, or whatever the fuck they call it. It's not a banister, because that was also the last name of Michael J. Fox and the Frighteners, which is a movie you should check out, by the way. And then they just destroy the sets. It's probably a good thing. It's a me, Mario. No, it's probably a good thing they destroyed these in one take, because otherwise it would have taken forever to rebuild them. And then the second floor is breaking. The mattress falls down. The bed falls down. There are easier ways to remove a mattress from your house if you want to get something else. And Lamont is apparently okay. Regan's okay. The house is leveled, along with a few others, apparently, because it looked like half the neighborhood was taken out. And that's it. That's it. Eat shit, Exorcist 2, the Heretic. How dare you? How fucking very dare you? Yeah. Anyway, on to Exorcist 3 with the one good jump scare and George C. Scott being all gruff all the time. Nevertheless, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rentlin. I'll see you soon.